Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Full Exposure with me, Brian Kelly. Hey, we have a brand new website, and man, that puppy is beautiful, and I want you to check it out. It is called, or you can find it at, I should say, fullexposurepodcast.com. It's so easy. It is beautiful. I gotta say, it's more than I thought we could have at this point. We're only, 10 episodes into this career podcasting. And why I'm excited about it is every episode has a dedicated page. It features our guest bio, a description of what we talked about, who they are. It showcases the portraiture we did before we sat down for our conversation. There might be random other photos or things that we talked about within the podcast, so it gives you a little more context. There are bonus video clips at the bottom of underneath the photo gallery, so you can see our conversation as it happened in video. There's also, which is pretty cool, an audio player built into the page, so you can listen to the full, rich audio of our entire conversation right on that homepage. So you can scroll, listen to it, look at some photos, watch, read more about that person. Maybe I put in some links that are relevant to that episode and what we talked about. So please just check out fullexposurepodcast.com. It was built, and a lot of the heavy lifting of the website was done by my daughter, Hannah. So thank you, Hannah. You did an amazing job. And, hey, checks in the mail. But my guest is Joel Potrykus, famed filmmaker, director, writer. He's something, Joel. He came into my studio and we were going to do the portrait, and man, we talk about it. But he did a few things before our shoot that I've never seen anybody do before. Looking for props, rummaging around. I really like these portraits, so please check them out at fullexposurepodcast.com. Okay. Since 2012, Joel Potrykus has arguably become one of the most successful and unusual independent film directors to ever emerge out of Michigan and land on the global cinema stage. Despite all his success, Joel talks about that he doesn't really enjoy the process of making a movie. I know that sounds weird. He's a film director, has a lot of feature films under his belt. Doesn't really enjoy that process. It might sound weird, but after you listen to the episode, you're going to understand why. And Joel and I take a deep dive into his filmmaking and writing process. We talk about his tight-knit and frequent film collaborators. He says they function more like a band than a production company, and that's very true. And we also get way into Joshua Burge, who's the lead actor in many of his films. He's kind of, if you want to say, a muse of Joel's, and he's cast him a lot in the lead parts. And a mutual friendship. Joshua Burge is a friend of ours, so shout out to you, buddy. You get some time in this podcast, and well deserved. Joel's previous films, Ape, Buzzard, and the Alchemist Cookbook, all established Joel as a genius writer and director of odd, offbeat, and campy films. The tone and style of his films caught the attention and quickly forged a business and creative relationship with famed independent film studio Oscilloscope Laboratories, which was founded by the late, great Adina Howard of Beastie Boys fame. But it's his latest film, Relaxor, that is kicking everything up a few more notches for Mr. Potrykus. His career is... this film is crazy. You have to see Relaxor. I promise you that you will not come away from that film feeling something. You may love it. I'm still processing it. It is a powerful film. It's beautifully made. Joshua Burge is incredible in this film. Like, I don't even know how he did it. The acting is nuanced. It's and just the whole team that Joel Potrykus has around him, the acting talent, the production talent, the cinematography is this is everything's coming together on Relaxor. It is quite a ride. Again, I'm not saying it's for the faint of heart. It's not overtly violent or grotesque necessarily, but man, there is tension in this film, and it builds. And Joel's a master writer and director, and the beats he hits in this film with his cast is something to behold. So, be forewarned. It's a good movie. It's unusual, and it is full Joel Potrykus coming at you 1,000 miles an hour, and that's the way I've come to like it. I gotta say, I didn't really love his films the first couple times I saw him. The first couple films I saw by him, I was like, you know what? I'm not sure I get this. I revisited the catalog. I love Buzzard, man. That's one of my favorite films, and also I love Relaxor, man. And it's not a normal film. It is a weird film and a weird premise, and it's beautiful, and you need to see it. And we should all bow down to Joel Potrykus. He comes out, hails from Grand Rapids, and is doing it proud. So, anyway, enjoy this episode. As always, this episode is brought to you by Brian Kelly Photography and Film and Brian Kelly Productions. If you have any photo or video projects going and thinking about doing something, please reach out to me. I'd love to see if we can collaborate together, all right? So that's the pitch. We're into the episode. Enjoy Joel Potrykus and I chatting in my studio. Pretty much.
I'm done with like press and stuff. I think I don't like press.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that? Just because it's...
I hate, I mean, not to preface this with, I just have a hard time talking about the movie.
Yeah. Like abstractly explaining it?
No, I just don't, I'm not comfortable talking about myself and stuff. Like,
right.
For me, it's like, there's the movie.
Right.
Go watch it. And
it's good you're on a podcast. I know. With nothing to talk about but you and me.
No, so this is fine. Maybe just because the more movies that we make, the more I feel like the little bit bigger they get and the more press that Oscilloscope wants us to do. And so it's fine. I mean, it's some of it's part of the job and some of it is really good, like conversations. And it's. But
the thing I noticed is, or not noticed, but your movies are you write, direct, produce.
Yeah.
They're not massive productions. It's a pretty tight group of people that you work with.
Yeah.
And so there aren't many other people that can explain it more than you.
Yeah, and I get that. Yeah. So sometimes maybe it was like the worst. I get a lot of interviews where they haven't seen the movie, and it's like, all right, tell us about the movie and tell us about you, and it's like, oh,
yeah. That's
it's like a sales pitch or something.
Right.
That's just the worst.
Yeah.
And they have those like junket days where it's just like, boom, one after another, and it's the same stuff. And it's like, tell us about the movie.
Right.
And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Like, there's a trailer. Go watch the trailer, or just go watch the movie.
Or play the trailer. Embed the trailer in the article that you're going to write about that, and then just ask me something else. Yeah.
But just tell us about the movie. Is like.
I won't ask you that. But I am interested about Oscilloscope because...
Are we rolling right now?
Yeah, we're just picking up some banter.
I see what you're doing.
It's just a little warm-up.
Yeah.
And I'll do an intro of you later, so it's not like I've got... I'm with here, Joel, filmmaker.
Right.
I don't do that. So, but I am interested. That was one thing. You've had some releases on Oscilloscope, and I got huge respect for Beastie Boys, Adam Yauch, and all that. So how did that come about? Because that must be... Can you explain it? Because I don't understand it.
Yeah.
What are they specifically? How did it start? And then I know it started with doing special projects and films and stuff like that. But
yeah. So Oscilloscope was... How it started... For me, is I would see they have that classic logo at the beginning of their movies, like wow, and I started to see it on movies that I really liked. The movie Wendy and Lucy, and I was like, wow, that's a great logo. What is this? And I looked it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the company that Adam Yauch started.
Yeah.
This is the Oscilloscope that I'd heard about. I just figured that they would be putting out hip-hop movies or something like that. And so it caught me off guard that it was on this little indie, and it was like, and then I started to like just rent all of their movies that they were releasing. So they started off as Adam Yauch was making. He wanted to make movies like documentaries. He made a documentary, a basketball documentary. And so it started as a company where he could control everything. Like he could film the movie and distribute it, and then put it in theaters and things like that. He could have all the control. And then after that, he had a business partner, and they're like, we need to start releasing other things. And maybe I'm getting some of the story wrong, but as soon as I found it out, I was like, that's where I want to be. Like, that's the people that I want to work with.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. Like,
because they're not putting out, studio films with blockbusters and rom-coms and just the normal sort of.
And like you'd go on their website and they would show their facilities, and it said, we do distribution, film production, and music, and that's where the Beastie Boys were recording their albums, was in this space where all of the film people were, and their studio engineers and everything. And so I just started sending them everything that I'd ever made through like their contact us page,
right?
Like, I just wanted them.
Actually worked.
Well, I just wanted them to know who I was. Like, right. I'm just this dude, Joel. Yeah. I live in Grand Rapids, and here's a short film. I know I just want you to know who I am.
Right.
And then I don't know if that
is there
worked.
something kind of Midwestern about that sort of golly gee? Hey, New York. I admired that about like some of our DNA when you're dealing with like coastal people. Like I find myself like shrinking into this. I don't know what it is. There's a sweet naivete sometimes, and
when we went to our first big premiere festival for Ape, like in Switzerland, it's like the biggest art house festival in the world, and we were described. It was me, Josh Burge, Mike Saunders, Ashley Young. We were described as the lovable goofballs, and I totally got that. We could not just like blend in to all the high upper crust filmmakers. So I was really just writing to them, and then I was sending them everything, and then when I sent them Buzzard, I was like, and it got into South by Southwest, and they're like, okay, let's like take this guy a little more seriously.
Sure.
And then right after the news that it got into South by Southwest, it got into this festival called New Directors, New Films. It was at the Lincoln Center in the MoMA, and they're like, okay, so this isn't just this film. This guy's films aren't just like appealing to like the grungy weirdos of Austin. This is also like a whole different audience that respects it as art or something. And from there, they were excited and I don't know how often they do it, but they're like, I mean, speaking of the Midwest kind of naivete, once they found out how cheaply these movies are made.
Oh yeah, right.
I was like,
leverage.
If you guys give me a few bucks, I could make one, and you'd have the rights to it right away, and you wouldn't have to compete with other distributors.
Yeah.
And so they're like, let's think about this. And they're like, yeah, let's totally do this. So now they're the producers of the films. They're putting up all of the money because they know that we can make it in Michigan for a fourth of the cost.
And you're not going to blow it out of the water and you have these problems.
And they know that I'm not just like some flaky dude. Like, he will make it on time with the amount of money we're going to give him. And we know what we're going to get because we've read the script and we trust it. So there's this, it's awesome, man. It's like, it was literally the only company I wanted to work with, and
that's incredible that can happen. It's like, it's Babe Ruth pointing to left field and saying, I'll hit a home run over that wall.
Yeah, it took a few swings to get there, but now it's like people are like, oh, aren't you going to go to LA, or you should try to do something with Netflix? I'm like, why? Like, I have no interest in that. Like, this is. Like, Oscilloscope gives us full control. Like, there's nobody looking over our shoulders. There's nobody like double giving notes even on the script. They'll say like, I consider them part of the creative process. They'll give me like feedback, but ultimately at the end of the day, I get final cut, and they trust us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can also see from maybe your perspective, and just knowing that. If they had given you a lot of money, or you had to have a much bigger budget, it would have to have a much bigger return for anyone to have, a return on it. And when if the budget's already lower, like it becomes profitable that much bigger, and
Right.
even if it makes something, as long as you're not like what's bleeding them cash, they'll
Right.
they want to work with you
Yeah,
creatively.
the
so.
less you spend, the more you can make,
Right.
and we all know that. And so they're like, and I think they're very realistic about it. They're like, this isn't going to be the next Pulp Fiction. We're not going to make millions and millions of dollars, but we're going to make a profit, and it's going to. These are I think at least that these are the kind of movies that we want to be known for, the offbeat kind of
Sure.
weird stuff. And so it's
Well, and I don't think
awesome.
the legacy of Adam Yauch at that point, when he wanted to get into that and start Oscilloscope with the mission that he had, money was not. It was more about art and
Yeah.
creativity, and it wasn't about like, oh, I'm gonna have to make X amount of dollars as my. He's already successful, and so not that you want to throw your money down a movie pit, but like. I could just see where it's more of an incubator of creativity in a sense of that, but that their first priority isn't like how much profit are we going to make on this vehicle,
Right.
to use
I mean,
almost-
obviously, they need to sustain themselves as a
Sure.
business, but that is their first and foremost is trying to put stuff out there that they like.
Yeah.
Which I get. And you go to their office, and it's like a Beastie Boys museum with all the props from the music videos, and the studio is like right there. So like that's where we mix the sound for our movies, like right where the Beasties record their albums, and it's just like.
Yeah,
This can't get any better. Like it's just.
yeah. My one regret of the '90s was that when how old are you? I just turned 50.
Oh, congratulations! I'm 41.
Okay, so in the '80s, Licensed to Ill came out and Fight for Your Right came out, and it was a huge hit. And I didn't really like that song, probably because it was overplayed and it was the big thing, just getting rammed down everybody's throat on the air and MTV and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I didn't really respect them till the 2000s, and they already had this amazing catalog of the '90s, which I wish I had been more into their music at that time.
Yeah.
And now I revisit it and discover stuff all the time, and just amazing.
It's their second album, Paul's Boutique.
Yeah.
That's the one, man.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted to do. I mean, because License to Ill was very much Rick Rubin and
Yeah.
his idea of fusing metal. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing album, but it wasn't really their kind of vision.
Right. Well, and what I respect about them is that I didn't even realize. I thought they were just a corporate sort of band put together. That I didn't realize how much sound sourcing and not just sampling music, but sampling like noises and creating, and then they're actual musicians, and then lyrically what they're doing was always incredible too.
Yeah,
especially
they started
for the
off as a punk band,
Yeah.
like all just like live instruments.
Yeah. My daughters gave me for Christmas this year the Beastie Boys book, the thick one that came out that
it's
they
so great.
produced, the guys, minus Adam. But anyway, you mentioned something earlier about making films in Grand Rapids, and or in the region, I should say, and just talk about what is the advantage, and I find it as an asset with locations and being able to sort of like go up and talk to people and say, hey, can I use the rooftop of your building for something? And they're just like, yeah, that sounds cool. There isn't this like, do you have insurance, or
Right.
you can, or I'll have to find, Tell me about the advantages of just working in West Michigan for you.
Yeah, I mean that's a big one. I mean, first and foremost, this is where my friends are, and I don't have any interest in making movies with a hired crew or something like that. That's not why I'm doing this. It's to be a band, like these are my people, and this is what we all play, and we all live in Grand Rapids, and we just don't need to live anywhere else to do these movies. And you're right, because if you are trying to do these movies in LA where people are jaded and everybody's trying to make movies and do that, something you want to use somebody's rooftop, and like you said, it's like, oh, do you have production insurance? All right, we're going to charge you a location fee.
Yeah.
And you need a filming permit and all this stuff. And that just like drags it down. So and
it's slow.
Yeah.
You can't go, oh, the weather's great right now, and it's probably going to be an amazing dusk shot, so let's scramble somewhere
right
and do something.
Yeah, people are like stoked here that like, oh, you're making a movie? Sure, I'd love to have my
Yeah.
restaurant be there or something. And
Yeah.
so, and you can move. Yeah, we shoot very quickly, and we couldn't. We do need that, like, oh, let's just go find. Although it was like, let's go find a payphone and just film there.
Yeah,
It was actually very difficult to find a payphone, but and no one questions you. You have. It's also part of because we don't have huge crews. There's like.
Yeah.
Back in the early days.
Not
it was
blocking
like,
traffic.
4 or 5 of us. And we actually, if we needed to block traffic, we'd just have somebody go stand at the end of the road and stop. And it wasn't like people were...
Yeah.
And if somebody asked, we're like, oh, shooting a movie. They're like, cool, yeah, I'll wait. It wasn't like you a-holes. So there's just people are... And it's just our home, and that's...
Yeah.
There's no reason to go anywhere else.
Well, I think there's a quietness to a lot of your films, a quietness and space, and some of it I maybe I read too much into the locations, but it feels kind of like a tapestry with your script, and just kind of how things are framed, but also just maybe knowing the backdrop that some of these things are filmed right around me. I look at I try to recognize locations, and just as my own sort of game, or I'll just recognize something randomly. But yeah, I have a sense of it because you watch films and you usually can pick things out right away that were shot here, even if you didn't shoot them. I'm talking about other movies now. It's like, oh, there's our skyline, or there's that park, or that tree. I know that tree, and then you figure out one of some film. It was shot, or part of it was shot here back when the film incentives were going on. But you talked about being a band, and just that approach. That just struck me as a cool way to look at that in a visual medium, like your gang.
Yeah.
Your homies are making the stuff with you.
Yeah, so we don't in a traditional film shoot, you hire everybody and then you get together a week or two before and you do your location scouting and tech checks and things like this. But with these, we're just hanging out for like a year before we even shooting it, reading the script, talking about it. Everybody's contributing ideas. And, me and the cinematographer are already going to places and just hanging out. It's not like, oh, let's... Right. I need to hire you for 3 hours for this. It's just like, let's go just check this place out and let's look at the light and kind of map it out and compose things ahead of time. And Josh and I, the actor, we'll just hey, let's just run scenes today and then go get some tacos. It's like, it just feels right. It feels like a band. Like we're just rehearsing and just hanging out and talking about whatever.
That's incredible because, you brought up Joshua Burge. You say Burge?
Burge, yeah.
Anyway, well, he's become a friend over the last couple of years. We try to do photo shoots together. When he moved to LA, we have an agreement standing now, and if I go out to LA for any reason, he has to make time.
Oh, your shots of him are so great. The one in the Capitol Records in the background and things like that.
That was so cool. He told me that is hanging now in some famous bar on Hollywood Boulevard.
It is in the...
and there's nothing but actors on the wall of this cool hole-in-the-wall bar.
I totally know, because I went and took a photo of that photo. Boy.
It's right off the strip. And he told me it was... I forget if he asked me to make a print, or I think I sent him a file. He's like, can you send me a file I could make a print of, because they're going to put it up in this bar, and I forget who he's hanging by. He's right next to somebody super famous. And the bar owner or the bartender had him sign it like a glossy.
Yeah, I've seen that. I cannot believe I can't remember the name of that bar. So cool. But
so when did you meet Joshua Burge? And he's his career now is something that is really interesting to watch because it has traction. But I just am amazed by his talent by watching Relaxor, watching Buzzard, and what was the first film? It was Ape. Thank you.
And the movie we made Coyote before that, which is our first
the only
short
one
film.
I haven't caught, just to be fully candid. But he really has some range that's quiet, and it seems to fit with your writing style somehow. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you feel about him? Because he's been the star of so many of your films.
Have you seen him play in Chance Jones?
He was sort of out. I'm a little bit older, so I was out of the bar scene around town and seeing club dates and things like that when he was playing. And then by the time he and I connected, he was already out of music pretty much.
Yeah, so I first saw him at, I went to Grand Valley State University back in like the late 90s, and he would play at the coffee shop across the street. And we were like, who is this Bob Dylan looking dude? And we kind of just kept up on, he was always playing solo shows, and he started a band called Chance Jones. He was going by the name Chance Jones, and he started a band called Chance Jones.
I remember the buzz about the band. Like there was a good 2 years where he had quite a following locally.
Yeah, they were playing really big shows, and people would turn out, and I was one of them. I was like, got into them, and you just see this dude on stage, and it's like he was all over the place, and people were just looking at him. You know what I mean? Like, you just look at this guy.
Well, he loves it. When I photograph him, like there's very few people that you can photograph where almost every frame, there's something there. It may not always be the winner, but like if I took just a single frame, I'd be happy with it if I wasn't trying to break them down and pick out my favorite 3 shots from a shoot.
Yeah, and that's what I saw when I would go see them. I was like, I don't know if this dude can act, but I just need to put him in front of a camera, and maybe we'll have a movie. So Coyote, I had written for him, and intentionally, there's no dialogue in that movie. He doesn't say anything because I didn't know if he could, remember lines or he could emote. Right. But I was like, if we just look at him for 20 minutes, this would be good. And it was great, and it was kind of like the first time we were both like, or at least I was like, yeah, this is the kind of movie I want to make. This is good. Let's keep this going. And then so I was like, let's just do it. And I actually never write for him because I don't want Josh Burge. I want Trevor Nurendijk. I want the character, and I want to challenge him to step up and do something different. Because every character has
been different. There's similarities I'll go into that I think, there might be parallels, but he's a different character in each one, no doubt. And the storyline drives it that way, and the strength of your writing drives it that way. But like he's really able to, I think when you took someone who's pretty much unschooled and just has all that that latent talent as an actor, and has the camera presence too.
Yeah, I mean, because he's a musician, he's a performer. Yeah. He's a performer, and he's just doing a different kind of performing in front of the camera. And he's got rhythm, and he understands the importance of silence. Like when you're not saying things, that's really when I want to look at you and just and so he has that. Like,
but as a director, I wanted to ask you this too, because I direct corporate stuff. I haven't done anything scripted, but the amount of balls you have sometimes to hold scenes, as long as you have them, where almost nothing's happening, but it's really important. Yeah. And you just hang in it, man, as long. And it's like when you watch that just with the little bit of film knowledge and scripting that I have about stuff, you're a confident director in not only your editing and timing of those things, but that trust in the actor to be able to be doing something meaningful, because you can't just put up a camera and let something happen without the actor really intuitively knowing what's happening in the scene, behind the camera, off camera. There might be something happening, but in their own thoughts, because they're not really doing a whole lot sometimes.
Yeah, those moments. I mean, those are the kind of scenes that if I were to work with somebody outside of Oscilloscope, like Amazon, and they would be like, "You cut this because there's nothing happening." Literally, like
move it along.
There's 5 minutes of a guy eating spaghetti. He's not saying anything. Like let's cut this. But for me, those are very rarely scripted. Where it's like, and so for instance, in Buzzard, the one where he is eating spaghetti for 5 minutes and not saying anything, and he's just watching TV. That's not scripted. In the script, it just says Marty takes a bite of the most delicious spaghetti he's ever had. Like, this is room service spaghetti, and he's really living it up.
Because he'd scored some cash and basically was splurging on himself and on the run.
Blew it all in one night. And so there's a lot of those kind of moments in these movies. But for instance, those don't happen. Those aren't planned. Those are like those are the moments that happen after, when everybody looks at me to say cut. And I'm looking at Josh, and I'm like, what I'm seeing right now is great. And I'm just kind of like, put my hand up, like, all right, everybody, just relax. We're going to let the camera roll. And Josh is so great where he doesn't look at me like, are we done? Or did you say cut? Like, he just knows that I'm watching him. Like, I don't watch monitors when I direct. I just sit there right with the actor and just watch them, and then trust that my DP, Adam Minnick, that like, Adam, did we get it? Like, it's composed, everything is good. You know, Sasha, the sound guy, everything sounded good. Yeah, I was like, and I trust you. So if I'm sitting there looking at Josh and I'm just like, this is great, then I know that it's going to be great in the movie. And so for that scene, he just took a huge bite, and he took a much bigger bite than I would have thought. And I was like, oh, this is good. He's going to just keep eating like this. So I just sat there and just watched him.
Well, there's this other tension that happens. He's in this white, he has a expensive hotel room. He has the robe from the bathroom. It's perfectly white.
Yeah.
He has the room service napkin. He's going to eat spaghetti, and you just know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then he just makes a mess of it.
Well, I didn't know anything was going to happen until he started. I was like, this is, it is. It's we're, shot at Amway Grand Plaza. It's like almost blew out the budget on that room. But it's this, it is.
You had to buy the robe at the end of the because
it's all pristine white, and he's being sloppy. And I was like, this is the character. This is the character.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that, I'm just kind of sitting off to the side. And usually I'm also kind of whispering things to Josh as we're filming, like, all right, now say this, or look out the window, or, punch the wall right now. And he's able to just like go with it and not be like, oh, that threw me off. And so at the end, I was like, just laugh. He goes, ha. And I was like, cut. And
it's
it's
very iconic. There's several scenes now, even you were kind enough to send me a presser for the for Relaxor, and even in that one, there's so many iconic film stills that are going to come out of that film and other things, just from a visual standpoint. I really am that's in that scene in Relaxor, and there's other ones too that are just, I think, going to stand the test of time. There's something too about your films that I just know that they will continue to resonate for years, because people don't really get them. But I know that people have described your films as art house or sort of campy, or have like this. There's another element to them that makes them seem timeless, but also eminently intriguing to kind of this smaller. I know you're not doing it intentionally, but they have that appeal. I think that I don't have a crystal ball, but I would imagine that people will still be watching Relaxor 20, 30 years from now, as something that is, and it's a confusing film. You're not sure how you feel about everything that happens in it. You're just sort of taken on this mesmerizing ride, and it's shot in one room in Belmont, Michigan, and it's really central on Joshua Burge again. And so, what do you have any misgivings or like irritations about how people have described the body of your work in that sense?
No, people all say different things, because it's not. I don't make genre films. I don't make comedies or horror or anything, and it is confusing to figure out what they are. And even props to Oscilloscope. Like, I wouldn't know how to market these things. Like, I wouldn't know what audience to try to appeal to. But, what I always wanted, I was like, I just want these to, this was, pre-streaming even. I was like, I just want to make movies that will go sit on a video store shelf, and then in 20 years from now, some 15-year-old kids will go rent it and be like, what is this? Like,
that's exactly what you see happen, and that will happen, every 5 to 7 years. There'll be this, passionate sort of discovery that happens, and then they'll explore your other titles.
I just want to give people what I had, when in the 90s, like, that's how you just go to the video store and you just like kind of rent everything. You're like, oh, what's this? And those are like my favorite movies, like Basket Case and Forbidden Zone and Eraserhead, like these movies that they weren't theatrical, and they were 20 years old, and no one was talking about them. You just rent them because the cover looked cool, and then it was like, oh, this is great, man. So yeah, that's all I really want is just I'd be happy. I'd be perfectly content to just bury all of them in a time capsule somewhere in New Mexico and have somebody dig them up and find them after I'm dead. And that would just.
Well, they would be endlessly intrigued with the commitment to stupid challenges in your scripts, like even, the Relaxor is premised on this bully brother character who basically puts him on these challenges that are...
Makes him drink a gallon of milk in an hour.
Yeah.
And that's all stuff that we did, like me and my friends did. Everybody would go hang out in the front yard on Lake... What was the address? 12. I can't remember the address. Anyway, we go out front and have a table, and then everybody put $5 in a pot and bring a gallon of milk, and the last person to puke would keep the money. So, these are very much drawn from personal experiences, just heightened a little bit.
Right. Well, but those challenges too were there's the other one that struck me is the scene with the bugles, that you're eating bugles off the off the treadmill.
Yeah.
And that was one where it's like, you're like, I'm trying to break my record. I think I'm going to break my record.
There's another scene that was not scripted. We just showed up. That was at our Mike Saunders' parents' basement. We were filming, and we're like, oh, dude, your mom's got a treadmill. I bet we can do a lot of goofy stuff on this. So I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to lay on my side here, Adam.
Yeah.
And
well, and just to clarify, I jumped around. I will jump around a lot because I don't have an organized structure to the interview. But that was from Buzzard.
Yeah.
And you co-starred in that film.
Yeah.
And I really think your acting in that is unbelievable. It's crazy how well. I don't know if you're just being yourself or just at a time, but you've embodied this nerdy office dude that's in a way in the wardrobe and your hair at that time, and it all just gelled into this. That you just cracked me up to no end.
That was film. The most painful part of that was growing my hair out long and growing this awful chin patch. That was because we, obviously I wrote these, so I know in my head, I just know these characters.
Yeah, for sure.
And we would do our table reads and our little band rehearsals, and we would audition people, and I was just like, nah, they're playing it too goofy, or they're just not getting it.
Yeah.
And in the rehearsal, or the table reads, everybody's just dying laughing, and they're like, Joel, you have to be Derek. And I was like, I knew you guys were going to say that.
But the quality of the performances that you guys deliver together in every scene, like the fight scene too, is crazy. He's got your head on the ground. Did you guys have a safe word for that? Because he's really pounding. He really put a lot of pressure for you.
That was, for me, the real reason that I was okay to play that part, because I was like, there's a lot of they need to have a chemistry. We have to feel like they know each other, and there's history. And so Josh and I had that when we could. And so when I specifically remember coming to that fight scene, I was like, just give it to me, man. Just give it to me as hard as you can.
We kept throwing stuff at you, and the glasses came out. Well, there's other scenes, but it's like he's always whipping stuff at you.
Yeah,
and it's hitting you, and it's hilarious.
He hits me in the head with a Hot Pockets box, and I remember when that took a lot of takes. I was like, it's got to hit me right in the head and whip it as hard as you can, or else it won't look right.
Right.
So yeah, I feel like you do need to really suffer to make something good. I mean, it's got to be realistic.
Well, you did, and that's the thing. But even in your script, your banter, I can't perceive the effort in the acting between you and him in that. And I just mean that as a compliment.
Yeah,
I'm not blowing smoke, but it's just, you can tell when people are anticipating a line, but what seems like all that dialogue had a timing to it and an authenticity to the dialogue that never felt forced or acted.
Oh, good.
And that just, and a lot of people could say, well, I don't really understand the story, or it's a weird film and whatever. But if you just break it down scene to scene of you guys acting, no one could exploit or could criticize. I don't think the timing, the comedic timing, the darkness, but the authenticity that you need to have as an actor, as actors together, to pull that off. Do you want to do more acting? I'm sure you get that asked all the time.
Not really, only if we need to do it, like in the Derek, if we couldn't find somebody else, or we just need to have that chemistry. Because, that's the other luxury, is that I don't have, if I'm casting myself, I don't have to, pay someone, right, fly him up or put him out. Sure. Josh and I could just hang out, and we're really big on rehearsals. So that's, I feel like, to make it feel like it's like we're not acting and we're not just waiting for our lines, because we've rehearsed it to death to the point where, and this is really basically all I was doing as Derek, because I was just trying to mess with Josh the whole time and keep him off balance a little bit so it doesn't sound rehearsed, because he knows what the scene is about, and as long as we get there, it doesn't matter how we get there, as long as the end, this is what he got, what he wanted, or I got what I wanted. So I can just kind of like play with it the whole time, and he's a good enough actor not to break and like start laughing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, yeah, and then there's I just want to jump around too much, but in terms of the other surprise for me as an actor or actress was Adina Howard in Relaxor, and I rewatched that scene a few hours ago, and she has a small but very important part of the movie, and the way it was shot, dark, and when she's at the door, you can see in her eye this little red glow of I don't know what it could be. It could be just the TV or anything there, but it just had this feeling, and it wasn't like a robot or a cyclone. That's not what I'm saying. It's just like it's so subtle that I didn't even notice it the first time. And then her acting and delivery of that and portraying this sort of sweet, mentorish kind of relationship, alluding to former co-workers. And just there was a sweetness. So how did Adina Howard, who's an R&B soul singer from Grand Rapids, who had some pretty big hits in the 90s and early 2000s, I'm trying to remember when her career was.
Yeah, she had a massive hit in like 94. Freak Like Me. So I mean, she is from Grand Rapids. And that scene is really important. That's like the heart of the film.
Because some backstory is explained, some objects are explained in the film that are very important later. You don't see it coming, but it's like
the first person to show up not to hurl abuse at the character, Josh's character, Abby. And so I remember Mike Saunders and Josh Burge were just kind of jokingly saying one night, like, oh, we should get Adina Howard. And I was like,
literally emerged out.
And I was like, yeah, maybe. I was like, I don't know if she can act, but she's from Grand Rapids and she's like the right age and she looks, the part. I want her to be beautiful, like in kind of an angelic, ethereal way. And I was like, yeah, okay. And
but she wasn't made. She was in like her uniform for, and you certainly could have made her up to look, more made up in a feminine, sexy way. She's still a beautiful woman, but but it just led to the role in the relationship, not to have her. We wanted be in a '90s music video.
Yeah, we wanted to ground it for sure in reality, and so I just like dug around in the internet and just wrote her and said, "Could we talk about this?" And I don't know if you can act. We auditioned other people as well, and they just didn't have it. And so we auditioned. I auditioned her over Skype, and mostly it was just talking. And I was like, yeah, she's got the thing that I want.
Had she done much acting outside of like portraying, herself in music videos?
She'd done one movie, but I don't think it was ever released. And I think I found the scene online, and it wasn't anything to display her abilities at all. It was like just kind of very chopped up and quick. But she came out for a few days near the end of the shoot to play this, and she was great. And that little sparkle of red in her eye, the DP had a minute, because he's meticulous about that kind of stuff. He's obsessive about every shard of light and glisten of what color, and make sure it's all there. So I tell him things like I said, at the beginning, I was like, I don't know how to do it, but I want certain characters' eyes to like basically light up. And he's like, all right. And so he plans this out with a gaffer. And so, I mean, sometimes you can't get, persons moving one way or another. And he's like, okay, well, he's the guy's like, yeah, we didn't get the red on that one. I was like, well, it's performance first. And he's like, oh. And so when we have those moments where the performance is right and his light or camera are perfect, then we're both, like that's the magic. But otherwise, I'm like, well,
if you had a performance in the can, then you can sort of play around. And sometimes when you feel, I think the actors feel that way. If you told them, all right, we're good. We're just going to try a couple things. There's can be a little magic in the...
And usually those are the best things.
Yeah.
It's like when you're like, all right, just relax now. You don't have to hit every single line. Let's just see what happens. And that's when they're loosened up. But
I was super impressed with her acting and the set design. There's so many things to like about Relaxor. It is quite a ride for the audience. It is something that you want to just know going in that you're going into. They're going to be in some uncomfortable scenes, not from anything weird or strange necessarily, like nothing like graphic in a sense of what you might be violent, or it's so subtle, and the tension builds over time, and the characters reveal themselves so subtly through the script that you wrote and alluding to, what happened to his father, but it isn't explained fully. It comes in little bits and pieces, and it just sort of builds. And then there's just the surrealness of the story being like, how did that ever come out of a guy's brain, to put that together? And I won't ask you that literally, but it is quite a process. How long did it take you to write that script in terms of like, okay, I think I have a movie around this idea?
It starts with one tiny idea, and it's like, I want to make them. And it's really, I don't enjoy the process of making a movie. Like, it's very stressful and taxing. And
all right, this is key, because there's the other thing we talk about this podcast is nothing is easy, right?
No.
So, and here you are, a very successful filmmaker in terms of putting out quality work so singular to your vision that requires only you can really be part of it. Explore that a little bit more, because it must be torturous then for you to have to write a script.
Yeah.
And that part is hard. It's hard to write anything, right?
I like the writing, and I edit them as well, and I like the editing. The times where I can just sit by myself in my bedroom and do my thing. But when I produce these with my girlfriend as well, Ashley Young, and it's just us. And so it's great because we can always be working on the movie, but it's also a curse because we're pretty much always working on the movie. There's no downtime where I leave the producer's office and go home. It's like we're live together and we're just talking about the movie, and I can't. And it's got to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like, it just has to be. You can never ever be like, okay, we'll just kind of gloss over. Like, everything has to be perfect. So that's really stressful to make. Like, just cross your fingers. Do all the planning and cross your fingers and hope that flights aren't late and that the weather cooperates. So with every movie, I'm trying to make it easier for me to make a film. And so.
Right. Well, I think the production part is always the wild card. I think what I'm sensing from you is that you have complete control over the writing process because it's on your brain and into the computer or paper. And also the editing is, once it's in the can, it's in your full control, and you can take your time, and there aren't all these curveballs thrown at you like there are on productions.
I'm basically a control freak, and you can't have full control, and you shouldn't have full control when you're making it. But so after Buzzard, we made a movie called Alchemist Cookbook, and I was like, I don't want a bunch of locations. I don't want to be running around town. Just like, if we can just go out in the woods, one spot. But still, with that was difficult because we did have to deal with the weather and things like that. I was like, on the next one, just one room. Just one room. Right. Let's get it easier and easier. So we that was where the idea started. I was like, it's a movie where a guy never leaves his room. And I was like, even more focused, he never leaves the couch.
Yeah.
And I was like, why wouldn't you leave the couch? And I was like, well, basically my daydream is to play video games for 6 months and just have nobody calling me, no obligations. I don't have to go to work. I don't have that would be amazing.
Well, and video games are, at least in those two films, and then the other film, I hadn't seen, was Alchemist Cookbook, but the video games is an underpinning of two of the films, Buzzard and Relaxor. Yeah. And that just comes straight out of your own interests and your own pop culture background.
Yeah, I just my interests worked themselves in. So, even so, we're like, we built this apartment set in Mike Saunders' the basement we filmed Buzzard. They have a 2-car garage, and we just built a set in his parents' garage, and figured out how to soundproof it later and how to keep it air conditioned. We were shooting in July. And then third, figured out how to build a set. And after that, that was the biggest stressor for me, was building a set. Just me and Mike, and neither one of us really knew what we were doing. And we had help with our friend Marcus, who he had never quite built a set like we wanted, but.
Well, I bought it as a real place.
Good.
I never would have guessed that it had, it had been completely constructed for the movie.
Yeah, it was great that way, because we could use the house as like our production headquarters and make the food there, and actors could sleep in the house and do hair and makeup there and shoot the movie off in the garage. Like that's my ideal way to make a movie. Just
not to get too nerdy into the production of it, but how many days shoot was that roughly?
13 days.
That's incredible to me. I mean, you did not have to move a whole bunch of stuff every day,
Exactly.
which is great. But just in terms of the complication of some of the scenes and angles that were shot, they weren't huge company moves or anything, but they were enough that required a whole separate set of composition eyes on what did that angle really mean, and add to the story by changing the angle.
And that's something that Adam and I obsess over, is with the motivation behind every single camera movement, every composition, what lens choice we're going to use. Like, that stuff is super critical about the story. We shot it all with one lens, an ingenue zoom lens, because we always set up rules. Like, we have restrictions. Like, for this one, is like the camera can never be behind Josh. The camera can never be above or below his camera or his eye level. Like, it's going to be locked down. We can tilt up, we can pan, we can go side to side, up and down. But the camera has to always stay at Josh's eye level, and that makes things easier. And we're not going to have movable walls.
Yeah.
Like, we have to feel like we're literally in the room, not like, it feels like there's a wall there. Mm-hmm. So once you do that, it kind of, like, once you take away so many choices, it's like, all right, we have 3 choices here.
Well, those parameters, it really grounds the creativity, because you only have so many tricks in your bag at that point. And then when a character moves behind Josh and they're doing something in and out of the fridge, you might not see their entire head, or it's cut off, but you hear their dialogue, and it actually adds importance and interest to what they're saying, even though they're just looking for a sandwich,
we do. I love cutting off characters, like the waist or the shoulders, and make it feel a little bit like almost uncomfortable to watch, because it doesn't feel like a safe frame.
Right.
And the other thing, because we rehearse so much, we can shoot long takes, and it's amazing to shoot a take that's like 12 minutes long and then go, wow, like a tenth of the movie is done.
Right.
Like, after 12 minutes, we're making some progress.
Yeah.
Like, we don't shoot coverage. It's not like, all right, now let's get his angle and let's do a wide, let's do a close. It's like one perfect angle.
And it has to be important. So what happens in there all has to be doing something, because if you're not, if you can't cue the activity you need to help further and honor the story, it is just wasted movement. You can't have wasted camera moves when you're just saying, okay. And there was some timing things from scenes on that they did a great Adam Minnick?
Yeah.
So Adam's camera moves and timing towards things at the door and coming back, and there's a lot of scenes that were timing, and there's something when you're describing the set and how you like to frame things. It's, of course, that seems logical to me, and you as I'm seeing you as a director, because otherwise you might as well just do the thing on Broadway on a big box on stage where you see everything. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's the advantage of film, is you can bury a lot of mystery in the scene, even though you're seeing things in the scene. You're not quite sure exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's what you don't see is really important. And again, it really comes down to if we were doing this and we were shooting traditional coverage, it would take, instead of 13 days, it would take 30 days, because it's like we'd have to constantly be changing setups, changing the light.
Yeah.
When I think you need
prime lenses all the time.
Yeah, I think you need to just go in and have, like, forget storyboards, because once you get in there, it's like those storyboards don't hold up because it looks different and things don't feel right. If you just spend 10 minutes and just walk around and be like, this is the angle that this scene needs to happen. There's no other way that at least I can do it. Some other filmmaker would come in and be like, no, we're going to do it all overhead, and be like, okay, that's cool. But I think that's the most important thing, is just take that time with your DP and be like,
when I have
what
shot
does
stuff
mean?
that's I've just shot some broadcast commercials and things, especially for a golf equipment company, and the ad agency wanted these very strict storyboards that we were going to shoot off of, and I have an improvising background. Like if I see something, once we're all set up, we're all like aiming towards shooting what's in the board, and compositionally, and the lens choice, and what's in the background, and how much bokeh is in the it's just how much is. But if you see something better in the moment, I'm not going to be a slave to that storyboard. That's what the beauty of making art and collaborating, and also relying on people around you to see something that you're not seeing, because as a director, you're worried about working with the talent, the entire production. And you have a dedicated camera department only thinking about composition and lighting. And if they see something that might be better, it's better that they come over and, hey, Joel, take a look at this. I think...
I get that a lot, and I love that. And and it really comes down to, you have to just be able to filter out the ones that you like and ones you don't like. And it's just instinct. It's all instinct. And and I love when somebody else comes up with something better, especially if it's an actor.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. And then there's a lot of less ego. I don't know, maybe it's too much to say you're being generous, but it's your vehicle. But it was just a better idea is a better idea sometimes. And if they're able to execute it, even better. As an actor.
For sure.
And even if it alters the story for arc a bit, you're okay with that in the sense of adding something.
If it changes the story, that gets tricky. I've done movie Ape, the first feature. We did a lot of that. Like, oh, we should just do this, and then I get to the footage and be like, this doesn't make any sense.
How am I tying in this later?
And so, but that's like also the fun, is like, it's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle, and how are you going to do that? Like you can put it together a million different ways.
Right. You rewrite it in post, right?
Absolutely. And I love that part of it.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I wanted to ask you just about those two films, which they're my two favorite, although there's a couple I haven't seen yet, between Buzzard and Relaxor. But there's some similarities, or at least things that I noticed that I didn't know if those are themes that you like to explore or just happen to be coincidences. But both characters, Marty and Abe,
Trevor.
No.
In Abe?
No, Marty, and then Josh's character in Relaxor.
Abby.
And they don't say his name much in the film, so it's not drilled in there. But Abby and Marty, they both are susceptible to these, they're sort of quiet, can be bullied or pushed around to a point, and then they have these outbursts of anger at some point, or they're just... And then the other thing I noticed was these backstories. It was your character, actually, in of the father being somewhat mysterious, and your character he lives upstairs. He's able to see him. You never see him, but that father character is like it drives all your motivations through that, and there's some funny references to your dad in that. And
I don't know why. My dad's awesome. I never had any, I don't have any.
Well, it gives you the freedom to go off and do weird things because it's not connected to
I guess that's why it is. If my dad really was like a deadbeat or something, I wouldn't want to deal with that. But no, I mean, I had a kid last year, and I think the older I got, the bigger the fear that I would never become a dad. And not that I really wanted to become a dad, but I was like, I kind of need to, I feel like, or else I'm just going to be going to Mulligan's every Saturday for the rest of my life. I need somebody to keep me in check.
As a guy with 3 daughters, that sounds pretty good to me sometimes. We're going to Mulligan's every Saturday.
How old are your daughters?
They're almost 20, almost 18, and then 14.
Oh, okay.
So I'm in it. I got one in college, one going into college, and then one going into 8th grade.
Is it easy, like when they're this old?
Did you have a boy or a girl?
I have a boy.
Okay. So
I mean, everybody says it gets easier, but
it gets different, and I think boys are different. So I have a lot of nephews. My wife's family's big on her side, and so I have a lot of nephews. But I used to notice when they were littler, about my girls' age, they would come over, and it's just a different animal. Boys, like, they're rougher, and things get thrown at eye level, like toys and things. And girls might be putting on a costume from a costume box and dancing for a bit, or they're very tactile and they might get lost in art for painting for 45 minutes, whereas a boy might do that for 4 seconds and be done with it, or just wants to destroy the table with finger paints and things.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. But it does get easier. It gets cooler as they get to be little people, and you can have these conversations, and you're sort of filling their brain full of things, that is good, hopefully. But you can really see them develop. But I don't think you have any control as a parent. I think the DNA and the wiring for a lot of what they do, the best is just for me, I learned, especially through kid number 2 and 3, is just to be the bumpers down the bowling alley and hope they don't go in don't get up too far off track. And but it does get better. It's just different. But there's something about a little baby that's awesome too, and it doesn't last long, and it's amazing.
Yeah, the first year was tough. He's 15 months now. Tough because it was just sleep. And
of course. Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal.
I'm someone who loves to, I love sleep and sleeping in. Like, I haven't slept in, but now sleeping in used to be noon. Now sleeping in is 7:30.
Yeah. Oh, and my youngest daughter, who's 14, she's still up every single day for school. She's up at like 6:50 or 7. But on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, she's up at 7:30. 7:30.
I need to hear.
I'm
something
like, dude,
different.
just go back to bed.
I hope this guy has my DNA, where he likes to sleep until 11 or noon when he's 5 years old, and it's like, all right.
Yeah. Well, it'll be fun, and I don't know.
Were you doing photography the whole time that they were growing up?
Well, that's a misconception. The cobbler's kids don't get any shoes. Part of it is just that people would always ask, or mostly say to my wife, "Oh, you must have the most incredible images of your kids."
Yeah.
And they didn't want to be photographed a lot of times. They'd be like, "Dad, no, put it away," especially if I got out of my professional camera.
But that's been your thing the whole time, right?
Photography?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I never shot families or kids. I've always been in architectural work or advertising work, and then that developed, or portraiture, for a commercial sense of environmental portraits. Or
what do you do specifically now, like the most of?
It's about 50%. It's about 60% photography and 40% video production work.
Yeah.
And its videos just growing every year.
So when I go on your website, and your photographs are amazing, just like not blowing smoke either. Like you are, there's this mentality from a lot of people in whatever industry. It's like, if you live in a little city named Grand Rapids, then in Michigan, then you don't take yourself seriously, or your work can't be that good, because if it was that good, you'd be off in New York.
Oh, sure.
And you look at it, and it's like, no, this dude's like doing like amazing photography in Grand Rapids, doesn't need to.
I appreciate that. I think part of it is with the internet, and there's photographers that I love from the time I started in photography. Photographers like Annie Leibovitz were big covers of Rolling Stone. I was seeing those sort of imagery, so that was like the benchmark of what you saw and became iconic.
Yeah.
And so that was one layer of just trying to survive, is how do you become somewhat of a bigger fish in a small pond from an execution standpoint. I'm not saying my work is, worthy or better than anyone else's. I don't want to qualify that, but I work really damn hard at continuing to always, even after 22 years, play with lighting, play with the subject. You were great today with this is a theme of the podcast though too, is we just did a photo shoot. I mean, do you enjoy being photographed? You had tell
Tell everybody what you started to do when we started to do a portrait shoot. And I loved it because nobody has done what you did in the 10 minutes before we started our photo session.
I mean, I was just kind of rummaging through the shop looking for props.
You're
Yeah.
in the kitchen cupboard, you're in the bathroom looking for anything. And it was great because what I ask people is, do you enjoy being photographed?
Mm-hmm.
And my experience is most people don't, unless they are like someone who's photographed a lot. Then they don't mind, or they get creative with it.
Yeah, for me, because I don't see any merit in me being a subject of a photograph. Like, it doesn't do anything. Like, everything I feel like that I'm going to give time to, I want it to be worth. I want to enjoy that. So there's no way that if you're just going to take a picture of me sitting there looking at the camera that I'm going to go, wow, this is great. This is great. This is cool. Like, why?
Yeah, exactly.
So I want something to kind of distract from me in the shot.
It's a lot of pressure to feel, especially if you're not especially enamored with being playful on the film plane of a camera as a job or just as a curiosity about yourself. And I'm very much that way. I describe what I do many times for people. I photograph many people who have, they don't get photographed very often. They might even be a top CEO, but they're very insecure when they have to sit for a camera and with lighting and all this stuff when you come in with a crew. But I'm like dentist.
I'm used to it because I have to do it for publicity and stuff. But I never ever look forward to it, and I only like the stuff if it could be anybody in that photo. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, it doesn't matter who is in it, essentially. It's just a great photo. And so, but I was wondering about yours, like when you go on your website and there's, Eminem and Mark Maron. Like, how do you get those jobs? Are they like, oh, we know Brian Kelly's the guy, we'll get him? Or like, is there, you work with a company that brings you on as a...
It's a little bit of a combination of all those things over the last 10, 15 years, sort of a snowball effect. One is, I props to Laugh Fest. Laugh Fest started an amazing 10-day comedy festival, and then we just finished the 9th year, I think, and they asked me to be the photographer that would shoot a commissioned portrait of every single top entertainer that came in. And you don't get that opportunity outside of Michigan.
But like, who pays for that?
Well, they have a budget. It isn't big, but they pay my production expenses, and I have a little left over. But
you get a guy like Paul Schrader, who's
that's a great story, because I wanted to ask you about Paul Schrader for one. But the only reason I got Paul Schrader's portrait is I went to his film seminar at UICA. UICA brought him in to do a talk. They screened his film.
Yeah, I moderated it.
You moderated it and did a Q&A.
But that's something you're like, hey, Paul, could I just get you for 10 minutes?
I literally went up to him, and I walked up to him at a 10-minute break he did a script writing seminar.
Yep.
That I paid and went to, because I was interested in script writing, and also to be in the same room with Paul Schrader, who's from Grand Rapids.
One
of the greatest screenwriters and directors in cinema history.
Yep.
So I just wanted me next to some of that mojo, and I didn't know what it would feel like, and I didn't know what he was like. But there was a moment in a break. They took like a 10 or 15-minute break, get a restroom break, go grab a drink, water or coffee. And he just went to the back of the room near where I was, and no one went up and talked to him. And I went up to him and I said, hi, Mr. Schrader, I'm a photographer in town. I love your career, that you're from Grand Rapids. Can I take your portrait? It'll promise you it'll only take you 10 minutes.
But that moment, or you set it up later that night?
Set it up later. It's all a big story. It was a huge scramble. And this brings us back to our other conversation about earlier about being in Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
He said, I'll do a portrait, but it cannot take more than 10 minutes. And I said, I'll have you out in 5 if it's necessary.
Because you could be anybody, just some schlub with a razor phone who's going to just...
Right. And I think I had my phone.
Why did he trust you?
You know, a lot of people, you show people something on your phone, and you don't even know if they can see it, because they might need glasses, right? And I just went up to Paul Schrader and I said, I'm a photographer in town. Here's a couple examples of my work. I'm from Grand Rapids. I would love to honor you with a portrait of you in your hometown.
Yeah.
And I know that you're staying at the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel. And if I get everything set up and I'm pre-lit and everything, you just have to come in and hit a mark for 5 minutes, I guarantee you'll be out in 5 minutes. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And then I said, so how do I get a hold of you? And this is my favorite part of the story. I said, so how do I get a hold? And he interrupted me, and he's like, 917. He just started, like, rattling off his cell phone number. I'm like, oh, am I texting you? Like, I was just taking a note in my phone. Like, like I just had to get something down. Do I email you, or how do I tell you when I'm ready?
He's kind of a rascal. I mean, you got to keep
he's
up
kind
with
of
that
a
guy.
cranky dude, and I like that about him. And I knew that, and that was, like, part of the intimidation of, like, should I go up to him and ask him for a portrait? Like, I'm asking, Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. Like, it's crazy. So anyway, then I said, I'll find a location in the Amway Grand. And what's your window? And he says, I have a window. I have to do a conference call, and then I have some time between like 3 and 3:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I'll be ready at 3 o'clock, ready to go. I'll text you the location in the Amway Grand. And I had about an hour and a half to pull the shoot together. I got one assistant that I could get a hold of. I had my gear in my truck.
Mm-hmm.
I had to call the Amway Grand. I called the Chad LaRue, who runs the marketing department. I said, Chad, I can shoot Paul Schrader. You know who he is? He said, yeah, I know who he is. Can I use your Lumber Baron bar? Because it's closed and they don't open until 5.
Yeah.
He's like, sure.
Oh, cool.
I rolled my card in past security. And I was like, got set up at like 2:45. I texted him the location. He never replied. And I said, I'll be ready at 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it got to be like 2:58. And I was like looking around, and he never replied to any of my texts.
Right.
I was like, I don't even know if this is going to go down.
It's a cool move.
And sure enough, at 3 o'clock on the dot, Paul Schrader strolled into that empty bar, and we just did a shoot. And then he gave me like 10 or 15 minutes. We ended up chatting a little bit, but I let him go. I wasn't gonna
Has he seen the photos?
Yeah, he loved them. He posted one on Facebook.
Oh, great!
Right after I retouched it and put it out.
It's. I wondered that with some guys or people that. I mean, do you do a lot like that aren't? You're hired. You just really want to shoot them.
I'll shoot. I'll shoot if I want to shoot somebody. It costs me money. I'll pay an assistant. I'll pay a makeup artist. If it's
why? That's your art. Like that's.
A portrait of somebody that will. There's a selfish reason. The first is I think it's amazing to put somebody in a frame that is somewhat well known within whatever genre they're known in.
Yeah.
Like that helps me because as a career, because even like you're like, how do you get so-and-so?
Yeah.
I try not to pay for those things. I love to get paid for them, but it helps me on the other side. People, I do shoot. I do shoot a lot of high-profile people for a living, but at the same time, it helps me shoot other projects, and they just think I'm the guy that does the stuff. So there's a little bit of a polish to maybe hiring me for a job versus somebody else. But my point is, it's first an art, and it's more of an honoring that person.
Because, like, in the same way that I really don't enjoy the process of directing a movie, I mean, do you love shooting photographs, or are you ever...
I'm terrified almost of every portrait. There's a paralysis that happens. I have an idea, but I don't know what the subject is. And this brings me back to your portrait, everything that I loved that we just did an hour ago, was... how you started looking for props. You're like, I can't just stand in the photo. I'm like, perfect. I'm tired of shooting people who are fine with me just shooting a portrait of them, and I'm telling them what to do.
Right.
And now I'm reacting to your energy and your interest, and you found some objects that were already making you laugh before we ever did anything with them. They seemed absurd.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is
this is Joel Potrykus. This is his films are offbeat. There's things coming askew. There's always something in the writing or the storyline or how something's shot that's like it's not in the mainstream, you know. And I think what I'm excited about your portrait is that it's gonna speak to that in some way.
Yeah,
because it's you, and it played off of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of me just loving the there's parts of me that when I have a big shoot, I don't sleep much. I may get 2 or 3 hours. It just keeps me up at night.
See, that's the slight difference. That's very similar to like when I'm shooting, and even the weeks that are leading up to the shoot, I can't sleep. And so you have the quote unquote luxury of basically one day, and you can relax.
Yeah.
So it's that I have that feeling that you get where you can't sleep and you're restless, but it's for like a month.
But the grass is always greener on the other side. If you give me a year to plan something, and I have to execute it over a month, like that's a luxury. When I'm scrambling and someone calls me from a magazine, then my M&M story is another one. I mean, I got paid for that, but like it was an accident. Well, it wasn't an accident, but I got a call, and the photographer that was supposed to do that shoot couldn't go, and that they asked that photographer, is a good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to help us find somebody, and they better be good. Yeah. And he said, there's only one guy I recommend.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I got a call literally at 1:30 in the morning, and it was this dude who's in Texas my buddy, Jeremy. He's like, what are you doing tomorrow at 9 a.m.? I go, I don't know. I'm listening to you right now. What you got going on?
Yeah.
And he told me about the shoot. He says, well, don't go back to sleep. The producer's going to call you. Just give me 20, 30 minutes. He'll call you. And he'd call me like an hour and a half later, of course. But anyway, that's how it happened. But then I was up all night, and then I drove to Detroit and got onto this video set that they were doing, and had to figure out what I was doing in 2 seconds. They told me not to bring in lighting.
That's probably the better way, right? I mean, for me, it would be like there's that you don't have the anxiety of the waiting for it. It's like, oh, it's happening right now. I don't even have time.
Well, I love that. I love the energy and the excitement of that. That's a drug.
Yeah.
I'm going to go shoot Eminem, and I have 2.5 hours to drive to Detroit and think about it, and also pinch myself the whole way. I'm going, is this really happening? Am I really shooting Eminem?
Yeah.
That's insane to me. That could even happen in my life, for one. And be in a position for those two things to collide is amazing. But at the same time, it's horrifying.
Yeah, I definitely assume you didn't sleep that night.
No, I did not sleep that night. There's a whole other backstory that I won't share, but I was already working on it. I was part of the reason that I didn't mind being up all that late, because I was on deadline for another project, and we were editing.
Did Trevor Noah come here for a Laugh Fest? Is that how
he came for Laugh Fest. A lot of especially if they're in the comedian entertainer field, they came through for Laugh Fest. So I might shoot 7 to 8 fairly iconic people every year for Laugh Fest, and then they'll go into my portfolio. But like Amy Schumer was shot she had inside Amy Schumer, but she wasn't
outside Stella's, right?
Yeah, that's the wall.
She was just here for a show, or was that?
She came in to do a show for Laugh Fest.
Oh, for Laugh Fest, right.
Because there might be 18 to 20 top. Well, they're doing a little bit less now. There's anywhere between. In the early days, they used to I'd shoot 18 different comics, and some of them were all over the mark. And then all of a sudden, somebody's Netflix special shows up, or they're on Comedy Central, and then something happens in the news, and then they're famous.
Yeah, that's got to be an awesome part of it. You kind of just have to treat everyone with the same respect as Eminem, because who knows in 5 years.
Yeah, and that's curious. I don't know like how you feel about meeting people, but the more I've been dealt with people who seem to be really famous, that veneer is gone for me. That's an advantage. I'm actually thankful for that, because I really don't feel any more pressure shooting Trevor Noah than I do for you, except my time constraint is going to be less with Trevor Noah.
Right.
So it puts a little more pressure on the shoot. But in terms of me just creating an interesting photograph, that pressure is equal. I don't care if it's you or a kid I shoot that's a subject of an annual report for a nonprofit. Like, I just want a good photograph. That's all I care about.
Yeah, and in the same way, I was approached by a well-known actor who's like, I'm a fan of your work and would like to work with you. And I had to kind of think about it. I was like, I don't know where this actor would fit into my world, really. And it's like, most people are like, oh, of course, you got to work with him. But it's like that, like if it's not right for the story, I what's the point?
Sure.
That's not... So I...
But in terms of the process of working, what I'm trying to get back to is that you don't... There's parts of the process that are really painful for you, and then it's also the same for me.
Yeah.
Like, there's other things I love about what I do, but like, I think people look at the outside, and you're this filmmaker, and you can write amazing scripts, and you're so talented, and you direct everything, and you're on film festival circuits, and you're in Switzerland, and all traveling the world premiering your films, and they think it's all great, it's all amazing. And it is, and they say that about what I do. They think I just shoot famous people all the time, but it is a grind, man. Tell me about the grind of just doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like you said it too, is the reason I do it is because, as awful as that is when you're on set and you get the take, there's no greater feeling than that. Like, that's just like, that's better than any drug, and you do it for that.
100%.
It only lasts like 2 minutes because it's like, all right, now we got to shoot the next scene.
Yeah.
But there, you can't ever get that feeling doing, at least for me, I can't get that feeling doing anything else. And every time I make a new film, I'm scared that I'm not going to get that feeling. Like, that feeling's gone, but it's still always there. And you only get that feeling when everything is perfect, or as perfect as it is in your head, when it's like, that's what I saw in my head and we got that. So if it's not that, and I'm not getting that feeling, then I assume the audience isn't going to get any kind of feeling too. And that's the big fear, is like, that I'm not going to love this movie because we haven't done this, and we haven't done this right, and we did this really quickly. We skimmed over this, and now
that, and I think the where the production was weak when you're done. When you wrap your filming, when you didn't quite have as much time, or you had to cut your losses at a certain point for whatever reason.
Yeah, and most people, no one's ever going to know.
They don't know. That was my next point.
I will know.
You'll know,
and if I can't watch my movie, then what's the point? Even though the irony is I never watch these because I just look at the mistake. All I can see is the mistakes.
Yeah.
But if it's like, I'm just trying to make movies that are my favorite movies ever.
Yeah.
And so if I'm not doing what's in my head, then it's, what's the point? Like, what is the point if it's not going to be my favorite scene or shot? And I want every shot to be my favorite shot in the movie. Like,
but also, like, in the history of cinema too, like, you have that sort of pressure too. Maybe you're not saying like, oh, I'll make something better than some of the greatest things, but the point is, I think if it never drives you, but it's part of your brain as a creative to go, I am sensing that in you, and I feel it for myself. It's like I put the self-imposed pressure that if I'm going to put all this time and energy and ask people to do this or that and sacrifice their time or their whatever summer, it better be good. That's the pressure I feel.
Yeah,
I tell
and
myself,
it's
and
not like this better. It's not just like, this better be the best movie in Grand Rapids. Like, this better be the best movie in the fucking world. Like, this is going to be seen, by audiences everywhere. It's going to be online, so anyone literally in the entire world can see it, and my name's going to be on it.
Yeah.
It's got to be global good, not Grand Rapids good.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be.
Well, you brought it right back to your original question to me. Is that's how I feel? Is that like if I'm doing this, I admire and follow and respect the work of the top photographers that their work speaks to me, whether it's commercial work or advertising work, or just editorial portraits, or they're just a fine art portraitist or whatever. Mm-hmm. That's the bar for me. Like, I don't care who's working around here. I'm just trying to swing for the fences.
Right,
for
and
me.
because that's the other thing, is no matter what, like, people are like, oh, Brian Kelly, he's great, he's working, but I assume that there's always something more that you're always trying to achieve. Like,
but I don't care. So don't you find that those sort of compliments to be empty. I'm glad I'm not fueled by people saying that they love my work or, oh my gosh, it's amazing. I'm not pushing on. I accept whatever people say, and I'm appreciative that they would say that about me or my work or whatever it is. But that doesn't fuel me. I'm not doing it for them or for that reason.
No.
And the fact that you put yourself as risk as a writer and filmmaker and crafter of cinema, it's something other than hearing applause at a premiere.
Yeah, there's always, no matter how successful somebody thinks that you are, I always am like, sure, but I'm really going for that. I haven't hit that yet. And that's what I'm like, to be content, like 100% content.
Yeah.
Or satisfied, I can't get no satisfaction. Like, I just want to be perfectly satisfied, and you can never be perfectly satisfied. So you're always trying to get perfectly satisfied.
It'll never fill you up.
Chase.
I think it'll never fill you up. Like, part of my horror is like I look at that Eminem photo, and I'm proud of it, given the circumstances and how everything came together. I think, home run. They loved it. It went crazy global because no one had seen him in quite some time, and his beard was, he'd been dark for a bit because his last album was not very good. And but I look at that and I go, well, who's my next? Well, why haven't I shot somebody else who's globally a Beatle? Like, we take Eminem in Michigan and in the United States for granted, but once he's in New Zealand or Buenos Aires or Santiago, like, it is Beatles crazy, Michael Jackson, and then it's insane his fame. But for me, getting back to our point, why haven't I shot anybody? Why haven't I shot Lady Gaga yet? That's part of the thing I'd love to. That'd be on my bucket list. And those sort of things, like, that's so fleeting. The project, yes, but I want the next one.
Yeah, that's always, and that's a big fear of mine. Like, when I made Ape, that was 2012, and that film did exponentially bigger things than I ever could have thought.
Sure.
And then as soon as we left the world premiere, that's the one in Switzerland, as soon as we left that, I suddenly had this sick feeling in my stomach. Was like, that was as good as it's going to get. Like, I'm going to be the guy 10 years from now. I was like, I made a movie in 2012 and it played in Switzerland.
I have the same feeling.
And it's like, I don't want to be that guy. So on the drive back home from the airport from New York, we had 12 hours. We drove to New York because it was cheaper to fly out of there. It was all four of us, and it was like, let's start writing the next one right now. Like, I have kind of an idea, but I'm just going to start. Like, we need to keep going. Like, hurry up. Like,
the synergy of opportunity. And just everything.
We have this momentum, and if we just go back to Michigan and like, look at us, we won this big prize at Locarno Festival, and just milk this, we're going to get really soggy and lazy, and it's going to, like, we got to. The thing we say after every time we wrap a movie is we just say, fuck that movie, like, fuck Ape. After we're done with Buzzard, we're like, fuck Buzzard. We're on to the next one. Like,
I'm going to steal that, because that is really the mentality I feel. I alluded to these broadcast commercials. I did a massive job in Scott, two of them. They were 2 years apart for the same company, big golf equipment manufacturer in Scottsdale, a huge soundstage. Like, I was brought in to direct, right? Like, I'm way over my skis. I have PGA Tour players flying in on private jets, landing at the Scottsdale airport, coming to the studio, which is right by the airport. And I have the production coordination was ridiculous. Like, in a way that, like, nothing could go wrong.
Yeah.
Tight schedules and all this stuff. And what that was done, I mean, I was horrified through the whole process, and it went great. And, like, nobody knows I'm horrified.
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing what I got to do. But at the same point, I said, give me the next one. As soon as I was on a plane flying back, I was like, I need to do another one of these, or another way, or another of that sort of pressure, even though it was miserable all at the same time.
I know. I don't get that. I mean, I hate directing, but every single day that I'm not directing, it's just like, why am I not directing today? I go to bed like with this, and I don't know if it's like something in my childhood, there's like a guilt thing or something, but if I'm not if I'm not doing something every day to make the movie that they'll know me by, you know, then what's it, you know? But now I have a kid, and I'm like, and my biggest fear before he was born is that I was going to lose that feeling, and I kind of did for a while. It's like, oh, films, I was superfluous. Like,
why was I so into
father
filmmaking?
now? But it took a while, and it came back, and I mean, obviously now it's harder because I'm with him all day, and I'm trying to write and plan things out. But I do have that feeling of like just this pit in my stomach where it's like I need to be making a movie right now. It's been a year. This is insane. Like,
I'll be down like a week and a half with no shoots, and then I actually do feel like, you know, just because of timing, the schedules, or sometimes I'm up for projects I don't get, and that's a whole roller coaster in and of itself. But I get super itchy and antsy, and I get a little cranky, and I don't want to.
I remember what it felt like before I was making feature films. Like, I remember that frustration, just kind of that feeling of like, I guess I'll just work at a bank. Like, just like that awful, like, kind of heavy depression that's not like lay in the bed depression, but just kind of like, this is,
you're resigned to something that you know in your soul you shouldn't be resigned to.
Yeah, and then if I could see where I'm at right now and be like, dude, why aren't you making? You have people will pay you money to make your next movie. What are you doing?
Well, 2011 Joel would just be amazed at 2019 Joel. Don't you think?
That's what sometimes, you know, sometimes I do have to like, okay, you get a little perspective, dude. Like, sit back and think, like,
give yourself a break, man.
You're doing good. Everything's good.
And acknowledge the rare air that you have. And I think that we want to pay you another compliment. You know, in the lexicon of Michigan filmmakers, you are in some rare air. And not many people get to climb the rung that you have. I know it's a grind. It's not like, you know, we're not. But the way that you're methodically building and controlling your career, it can only get more and more exciting. Is within your partnerships, and when you have that sort of backing and sort of your methodical approach to filmmaking and story crafting with your band of brothers that you put together and sisters, it's going to be an amazing thing to watch. I can't wait for the next one. I don't want to know specifically the project, but there's something in the works, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I'm just, you know, it's also that you have to have that feeling of like, at least when I'm writing, I have to think, this is the greatest thing I've ever written. And right now I'm halfway through the greatest thing I've ever written.
That's awesome.
I cannot wait. I'm just dying to film it. Yeah. But I know as soon as if I say, all right, July 2020, we're filming for the next 14 months, I'm just going to be, nauseous and can't sleep. Yeah. But I just can't wait to film this.
I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Is Mr. Burge going to be part of that, you think?
I don't, like I said, I don't write. I don't even, even when I'm writing it, I don't even think like, okay, Josh is going to play this character. Sure. I just do. And then after, I'm like, and it's weird. I'm never like, all right, Josh, I would like you to play this. It's just kind of like, hey, it's a script. Let's read it. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna be great in this. And he's like, oh yeah. And there's never a time like the role is yours, kid, or there's no contracts. It's just kind of like months go by, and then be like, yeah. I'll tell somebody like, Josh is starring in it, I think. Yeah, he's the lead role.
I think so. He's been reading the script and scouting with me for quite a while.
Yeah, and it's just kind of goes back to that band mentality where you wouldn't be like, you're like, oh yeah, I'm writing a new album. It's like, we got to go find another lead singer. It's like, no, he's the lead singer. It's just kind of like, that's what it is.
Well, he's a quality dude, man. I really like him. He's been great to me, and we've made some cool photos together, and I know that we'll be able to do more down the road. I mean, I'm always itching to try to get to LA and squeeze in some personal projects.
Your Meanwhile photo of him is really excellent, man.
Well, that was fun, and it was nice. I asked him where he was leaving. He sold everything. You know, that was the longest goodbye of all time, Josh Burge. It was a little crazy, but he just posted up there.
The Long Goodbye. That's the Altman movie, right? The Last Goodbye, Long Goodbye.
I think it's the Long Goodbye.
Long Goodbye. Yeah, he was living the long goodbye.
He was, but it was beautiful, and it was very heartfelt on his part, so I cut him all kinds of slack. Yeah. But I know that was his joint, and that was his watering hole, so I was like, let me get something before you go. And I love environmental portraiture like that. That all plays a story behind, and everything's meaningful. But yeah, we've done a couple shoots in LA and a couple here, and but for all those same reasons that you like him on camera, I love him on camera too. 'Cause he's just he has something that 99.9% of the world doesn't have, and it's not a traditional look. He's so uniquely himself.
Yeah.
But well, I really thank you for coming in. We've been talking a while, so
Thanks, Brian.
I'd love to swing back, talk more later.
Yeah.
Down the road and have you on. And there's a lot of loops that I didn't get to.
Me too.
We got going to a synergy of just being creative, grinding in the business side of just trying to roll a rock up a hill.
Yeah, this is great.
But is there anything you thought you'd talk about? Do I need to ask you about Grand Valley or teaching or anything like that? Because that's your other side of you that you're.
Yeah, luckily I don't have to. I would not be able to make it as if I were a director for hire, which I have a manager in LA that is often like, they're looking for a director, and it's like, I hate directing. If I'm going to do it, it needs to be my thing. So
I need to suffer properly for it.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If you told 2011 Joel that you'd be a professor at Grand Valley State University, you'd be like, well, you liar, get out of here. Right. So that is like teaching. I love teaching. Like that's when I can finally I look forward to every day doing that. There's no dread. So I feel like I'm in a good place with that. It's a great balance to be able to have the summers off and make a film in the summer.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Well, appreciate it. I can't wait to share the portraits, man, that we shot just a bit ago. They're different for sure. And
stoked.
You're a different cat and you make different films, and I couldn't be more excited to share them and push them out. So props for coming in, and I'll be definitely looking you up soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah. Wow, I really enjoyed that longer conversation with Joel Potrykus. I couldn't cut anything out. I just found him so fascinating. So thanks for hanging in there. You can stream or buy Relaxor at relaxor.pizza is the URL. It's video on demand. So check it out. Go to relaxor.pizza. And see Relaxor, man. We should debrief and talk about it together and sort of figure out what happened there. And it's a good one. Not for everybody. Check it out. Thank you, Joel. That was fun. Check out fullexposurepodcast.com. It is it's a rich experience. I'm very proud of that site, and so I hope you will peruse other episodes, look at other portraits we've made, and all kinds of other cool stuff that's on each page. Watch some video of our conversations. But most of all, have a great week, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode, and I'll see you next time.